I'm going to say that again, because I think it's really important. Stress is created by the mind of anger that's rejecting the situation. If we can acknowledge that, then suddenly we are given an opportunity to transform the situation. If we don't acknowledge that, if we think the situation itself is producing stress, is forcing us to become overwhelmed, and then of course the situation feels unmanageable. There's nothing we can do. We're trapped. We feel so trapped. But if we recognize it's our own mind of anger, then we're given a solution. So of course this is the Buddhist approach. The Buddhist approach is to understand that it's our own mind that's creating our reality, and that an angry mind creates a painful reality. And in this case, the rejecting aspect of the mind of anger, the non-accepting aspect of the mind of anger, is creating a stressful situation. And it all feels so tight and unmanageable, doesn't it? We can get stuck there. People can spend years of their life going yes, 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 but internally they're saying no. For example, the other day I saw a man out walking a little puppy bulldog. And this puppy bulldog had no intention of being walked. So he was just dragging this thing along the sidewalk, like this. You could hear the kind of, the nails scraping across the sidewalk. And that's us, isn't it? We go through life in so many situations with the brakes on. We're saying yes, yes, yes externally, but internally we're saying no. So if you try to drive, when you try to drive with a handbrake on, I'm sure you've all done that. You're wondering, what's that noise and why am I not going so fast? Well, it's because you have the brakes on. So it's the same. And that creates stress, doesn't it? Stress on the engine. Well, that's us. Stress on the engine, stress in our mind, stress in our body, stress in our relationships, because we're saying no, but we're not even recognizing that we're saying no. We're just griping internally. We're just complaining internally. So what we need to do is recognize, and this is what we do when we practice meditation. We get to know our own mind. We get to learn, what does anger feel like? What does patience feel like? And this is where it all begins. This is where the practice begins. This is what the Buddhist practice is all about. Geshe Kelsang says again and again and again, the way to deal with the painful states of mind that we call the delusions, such as anger, is to recognize them, reduce them, and abandon them. And basically what I'm talking about here is we need to recognize our mind of anger. In other words, we need to recognize, I am angry, and this is what it looks like. This is what the mind of anger looks like. And sometimes we don't want to do that. We don't want to recognize that you're angry with, for example, your partner or your kids. It's even painful to recognize that, isn't it? But it's vital, because if you don't, the situation remains unmanageable. The moment you recognize it, there's possibility, because you can only change the external situation so much. But you can completely and utterly transform your mind. So what do we need to do? We need to recognize our own mind of anger. Just that. Initially, just that. Actually accept, I'm angry. Accepting it in such a way so that you can actually look at it and say, here it is, a mind of anger. And take a look at it and see how painful it is. See how actually you don't want to follow it. Listen to its grumblings and realize I don't want to follow its grumblings. I don't want to get trapped in that. Just by looking at it, you create some distance. Some space comes in the mind. Basically some leverage. Whereas before you're just immersed in it, aren't you? Because you're not recognizing it's just taken full possession of you. Once you get a little bit of space, it's not easy to distance yourself from that mind. Through simple techniques, breathing meditation, for example, you can just breathe it right out. You can just let it go. Many meditations we teach for learning how to let go of the distorted state of mind, the painful state of mind, but first you have to recognize it. once we can create some space, we can begin to let go of that situation, then of course we have to bring in an opposing positive view. We have to see, because the situation is not inherently stressful, because my boss is not a stress inducer from his or her own side, I can respond to my boss in a different way. So the key thing here is learning we're learning to see some positive way of responding to what before seemed like an unmanageable situation. So, for example, in Geshe Kelsang's most recent book, How to Solve Our Human Problems, then we learn many, many different methods for how to deal with anger, for example, and how to respond to difficult situations, problems, in a positive way. So I don't have time to give you many, but just one simple one, which is you can begin to think, say, of your boss, because that's where we started off. If you have a lovely boss, then please forgive me. Actually, from this perspective, we all have lovely bosses, because even if the boss is perceived initially as a difficulty, as a problem, from the perspective of someone who's training the mind, that's perfect. Because they're not intrinsically a source of anger. Rather, we can regard them as an object for training our mind in patience. We can say, you are my object of patience. You don't say that to them directly. That's a bad idea. But internally you say, you are my object of patience. And so then when you see them walking towards you, whereas before it was like inducing stress, now you're thinking, here they come, my opportunity for training in patience. And you're ready because you've practiced. You've been practicing at home in meditation. You've been preparing your mind to let go of the angry mind that wants to fixate on the problem, to let go of that, and instead to say, I'm going to accept the nature of patience, acceptance. Anger is the nature of rejection. Patience is the nature of acceptance. I'm simply going to accept that situation. Within accepting it, then there are many different possibilities of what to do. Within the rejection, everything becomes very limited and very unmanageable. So let me just conclude just by reading one short quote from How to Solve Our Human Problems. Patience is a mind that is able to accept fully and happily whatever occurs. It is much more than just gritting our teeth and putting up with things. Being patient means welcoming wholeheartedly whatever arises, having given up the idea that things should be other than what they are. It is always possible to be patient. There is no situation so bad that it cannot be accepted patiently with an open, accommodating, and peaceful heart. I mean, if you think about it, there's never any point in rejecting what's happened. The doors have closed. The boss just asked you to do something. Why reject? It's happened. Just accept. Because then you can deal with it. I mean, sometimes maybe it's appropriate to say no. But not with a mind of anger. You're saying, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that. With a patient mind. Do you see what I'm saying? So patience gives us just all sorts of possibilities, in which case the seemingly stressful situations become just opportunities for training.